Mirror, mirror on the wall, can I start my build this fall? We've dreamed it up and planned it all. Now's the time to make that call. When building a custom home, timing really is everything, but so is your vision. Before breaking ground, reflecting on what you're building and why you're building will bring clarity to the entire process and help you and your building team understand what success really looks like. In this episode, we're pulling back the curtain on the very first phase of your custom home journey, defining your goals and timeline to avoid some of the missteps that can shatter your dream before it even begins.
Welcome to the Art of Custom. In today's episode, we kick off a new season, starting with a look at the very first step of your home building journey, defining your goals and timeline. We'll share the most important questions you should ask before beginning the process, as well as tips to help you avoid some of the most common pitfalls. Enjoy!
Welcome to Season 8 of The Art of Custom, a special 7-part series focused on the pre-construction planning phase. If you're in the early stages of your custom home journey, or even still planning in the dreaming stage, we created this season just for you. We're pulling together 2 decades of experience building homes across the country to help you make the most of the first phase of the building process. Our goal is for you to feel confident and make decisions that save you time, money, and this is what I like best, Melody, sanity.
Yes. I mean, if you know what you're doing, it's easier to track whether or not it's going right, correct? So the pre-construction phase, I think, is the most confusing for people sometimes.
So that's very appropriate, the sanity part of it, right?
Absolutely.
Before we go into the podcast a little bit further, welcome to Season 8. Can you believe it?
I know. That's a lot of seasons.
It's a lot of seasons, a lot of great information we've shared. Another good season coming up, and I know we have a few housekeeping notes to take care of, right?
Absolutely. So we're going to change to a little bit of a different format. We're going to start releasing episodes every other week and do a shorter season. You know, each topic will have 7 to 8 episodes that we do a deep dive in that particular topic. And when we go off air, if you will, we get people asking where we've been. So, you know, it's helpful. There are a lot of people listening. And this also gives us a chance we can kind of interrupt our regular topics and address things newsworthy as they come up too.
Yeah, that's something that's important because I remember even last winter, there was a lot of talk about tariffs. There's always been a lot of talks about interest rates. So I like this new format. I think everybody will stay engaged a little bit better. Plus, it gives us a chance to really focus on some topics. And I like the topics that you have selected for the Season 8. It's really good to help everybody understand some of the early process of the construction project.
We're going to start with this first kind of groundwork before groundbreaking. What do you need to do before you start talking to us, right?
That's a great topic because there is so much pre-planning that has to take place, right?
Right. And, you know, in order to turn your ideas into a clear, actionable plan, knowing what those ideas are, having them down on paper, and communicating those with your building team is going to make everything go so much easier, have a lot less surprises.
And you really need to know why you want to take this journey. That is very important. And then come up with a game plan.
Absolutely. I think before you talk to a builder, before you buy your land, especially before you start sketching out your floor plan, there's even a book when it comes to like businesses and things start with your why, Simon Sinek, right? So we're going to ask you to get a little introspective here. And why are you building a custom home in the first place?
And there's really several reasons. It could be creating the forever home, which I would say most of our clients kind of fit into that category. Even the ones building out in Park City, where it might be their second home right now, their ultimate goal is to move into that home and make it their forever home. Some people just want to downsize into more of a luxurious type of a home. Then there's also building that retreat for your family and trying to get closer maybe to nature, maybe at schools, or maybe you're kind of a party animal and just want to become more closer to various entertainment options. But they're all good reasons, and everybody has a reason why they want to build their new home. Let's talk about what do you think that first step is, kind of once you've identified the why you're building a home.
So starting with your daily life, that's, kind of feeds into that school thing. Do you work from home? What is it that maybe you're not doing now that you'd like to be able to do in your home?
So we should be taking notes, right?
Absolutely.
So we can share this with your team.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm a big list person, checklist, maybe even a spreadsheet. So
You're the queen of spreadsheets, that's for sure. I walked into your office not that long ago and you turned around a spreadsheet in a matter of minutes. It would have taken me days to do it.
Well, and now we have a great estimator here in St. Louis who's also a spreadsheet queen, and I'm just in heaven.
Well, that's why we hired her, right?
Yes. And, you can create weighted averages for each of these questions you're asking yourself on your spreadsheet. So
some people could, but I think it's a great idea, though, because some are more important than others. So you do kind of want to focus on that. But okay, so we're starting with making lists. Go ahead.
Okay, so do you entertain a lot? We had a client here in St. Louis that built the entire first floor of their home was created in order to open up out into an outdoor space. There was a pass-through window with some bar features. It created a huge flow on that first floor that could be cozy when it's just the family, but opens up for entertainment. So, you can see why these questions are really important.
Yeah, more and more of our clients are truly asking for that wide open outdoor, indoor living space that comes together. Some of the other things, a lot of people have been asking about pets. We're doing so much now with pets, whether it's special doors, whether it's special wash tubs, something, but pets are extremely popular. So how do you want to pamper your pet with this new build? Plus kitchens. Everybody is into kitchen these days.
Absolutely. And outdoor kitchens are huge too. That's one of those things that it used to just be a grill and that's your outdoor kitchen. But having that space where you can store beverages and prepare foods and just comfortably cook outside has become huge lately.
Yeah, and with that, dirty kitchens is something too that a lot of people are starting to really want to plan into their new build. And we're doing it more and more often, but it does take extra space. It does add to the budget. So a dirty kitchen is something that you're going to want to think about as well.
And we're building for a professional athlete. So having, space for practice facilities and things like that. I mean, even, choosing the right piece of land. You hear about all these baseball players that have the practice barns. I'm jealous of that, and I'm not even a professional baseball player. But, what are the goals? What is life supposed to look like for
Offices, workouts, gyms in the home, entertainment, all that kind of stuff is very important. Something else that obviously is extremely important is kids. Space for the kids.
Yes, and there was a really neat house. It was a forever kind of retirement home, but what I loved about the layout is that they had adult children who they expected to come back and visit. And so there were kind of these suites upstairs, right? So they had their primary bedroom on the first floor, but their kids and grandkids could come visit without, keeping everybody else awake and have a quiet place to go, do bedtime stories and baths and things like that. The Chorzell house. So.
Yes, yeah. And that's what I tell everybody is this is the beauty of building a custom home. You truly can build it for your lifestyle, your family's lifestyle. So make a list because when you do put that build team together, it's very important to have everything. That's my favorite saying is that's the beauty of a custom home. Well, it really is because not only during the design phase, but the finish phase, what do you want this house to be like? Yes. Calm and cozy? Do you want it to be more formal and structured? And you truly can build and then finish this home to your lifestyle and your dreams. So that's where, making sure you're saving photos and looking on Houzz, and that's HOUZZ, houzz.com. A lot of inspirational ideas you can start pinning and saving and sharing later. But I think that's a very important part of the process to get ready to build.
Well, and I think a lot of people believe that those websites and all those boards are just for people who are, interested in design, right? But your designer or whoever you're working with, just saving something that really inspires you, you think, I really like this. They're going to be able to find common themes between what you may not realize is you really like the stucco look on the exterior. You really like cast stone. They can take just those pieces that are floating around and give you the vocabulary before it.
That just what you said reminded me of that Kohler commercial. Remember where the couple comes in with a bathroom faucet and sets it on the table of the architect and says, design the house around this.
I mean, you could design a whole room around, a painting.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's true. I mean, that was a very important factor by one of our clients in Park City, Utah.
Absolutely.
Artwork was so important to them that we had to have the wall space available. It had to be the right size, had to be the right location, had to have the right lighting. So absolutely, if it's whatever, triggers you, just share it with your team because that means it's very important. So Pinterest is another really good one. Magazines, cut out photos, just save them all.
I use Instagram. So I have, you can create a board and just, these beautiful photos. And, people will even put DIY tips up, and just because you're not DIYing something doesn't mean that this isn't a look that you're going for. But, just creating, this is my kitchen inspiration. And you can save that to a private board and come back to that and share it with your designer. So I think that one of the things is you go into that meeting and you say, I want a modern home. And you want to communicate
what does that mean, right?
Yeah, but modern doesn't always mean sterile or industrial. And farmhouse doesn't always mean super cozy. There's an interpretation and vocabulary can be limited. As somebody who loves words, it's hard for me to say. But we want to make sure that you can communicate exactly what you're seeing and feeling.
And one of your tips, which I thought was a really good one, is have everybody maybe create a list of what their top 5 priorities are and then compare and see what is the most important then will be those ideas that everybody has on their list. And again, then you can share it with the builder and share it with the architect and share it with the designer.
It guides design. Everything from land to budget to design, having those priorities and making sure that everybody's aligned on them.
Yeah.
Maybe my 12-year-old wouldn't get as big of a vote as I would, but, knowing that something is important to one member of the family is always a good thing to bring into the discussion.
Exactly. Okay, we're starting to dream big. We're making some lists and all. Where do we go next?
We want to build a timeline. Timing is everything, and having a realistic idea of what is possible in a custom landscape is important because it does take time, and that is something that you as a homeowner have more control over as well. So
yeah, you do, and this is again where you need to rely on the expertise of the builder, because the builder and the architect, you want to set realistic expectations because depending upon where you're building, sometimes if there's architectural review committees or if there's an architectural review board in a municipality, it can take a little bit longer to get through the process. Also, the architect, you might interview an architect who says, we typically turn things around in, let's say, 3 months. And then another architect says, well, we take a little bit longer. It's going to be 4 months. So I always tell our clients to work backwards. When do you want to move into that house? Then give yourself a month or two of a little slush, if you will, some padding, and then work backwards. How big is the house will determine how long the build is. How complicated the house is will help determine that as well. And then I generally tell everybody, okay, if you've worked with your architect and you've worked with your builder and designer, how long have they told you is the design process going to take? With us, it typically takes 6 months for a build kind of in the St. Louis area. By the time you design it, by the time you then work with your architect and you work with your designer to help make some of the selections, by the time you do a very thorough job budgeting the house, and then the client will actually close on the construction loan, we typically tell everybody plan on 6 months. Now, sometimes it can go more quickly depending upon the architect and things. So I tell people 4 to 6 months for that process. Depending upon the size of the house, it's anywhere from 10 months to 14 months. So that can kind of help give you some guidelines there. Utah market, it takes much longer. The architectural review process is much more intense. I think that's probably a good word.
Well, and your land too. There's a lot more development because once you get into excavation, there's going to be rock blasting probably. If you're building into the side of a mountain, there's going to have to be some grading for, even pulling a driveway
even
up.
The driveway, because you don't want to have a driveway that's too steep. So yeah, in the Utah market, I typically tell everybody 8 months minimum. From a construction standpoint, 14 months, 2 years, depending upon the size. But again, these are rules for where we are building. Just use the same idea, though, in talking with your team to put together a realistic timeline.
One of the things that we maybe don't emphasize as much as we should is that the biggest pitfall when it comes to creating a timeline is delayed client decisions.
Yeah.
If you have something major coming up in your life, like I'm going to be going to Europe for 2 months, right? If you're not going to be in close contact with your architect and you're in the design process, that is going to put a hold on things. Being able to make a realistic timeline includes much more than just what your builder has to do. It has a lot to do with when you're making decisions and you don't want to feel rushed.
No,
too.
you don't. And at the same time, you want to make sure the builder, stays on that timeline. So expediting your decisions. And again, your builder and designer will have a schedule in which you need to keep. So just trust them.
But, if you're going to tell me that you want to move in by spring and it is fall, I'm going to have a serious heart-to-heart with you.
It's not going to happen,
Yeah,
is it?
it's not.
If you have not started construction, it just won't happen in this day and age. And that's
No.
not just because we as custom builders can't build the home, more quickly. It's just where there's so many headwinds right now with labor shortages and still a little bit of headwinds with some materials due to some tariff talks and things like that. Now, I want to be clear, though, a production builder, if you go the route of a production builder, you could stand a very good chance of starting in the fall and moving in the spring. A semi-custom or a custom build, it cannot happen that quickly. It just can't.
From the pure fact that the land, you're picking out the piece of land and you don't know what you're going to run into underneath that soil, different things like that. Making sure that you also don't feel rushed in your builder making, decisions about how to solve problems and things like that. Just being relaxed about the timeline is going to be important, but also being realistic with yourself.
For sure. And you had mentioned possibly some rock in some of the areas in which we build. And there's other things that you can run in depending upon where you are in the part of the country. Just a tip about the budget. I know we're not focusing on the budget, but this is always... Not yet, but it's always good to just keep in mind you've got to have some contingency for what happens, what you run into when you start turning dirt. If you don't need that money, you're not going to spend that money. The builder's not going to ask you for it, but just have a contingency.
Absolutely. And, faster does not mean better in this type of build.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because, when you're building a custom home, you've taken all that time to design the perfect home and find the perfect selections. Why rush the build? Because you want it to be perfect, right? One of our core values is dedicated to details. And that means those details can take a little bit longer than a typical build because we want everything to be perfect. And so absolutely right. Do not rush. I know you'll get excited. I know you're going to want to move in as quickly as possible. And you might even face a few delays here or there. Maybe it was a really rough winter weather-wise, or maybe it's been a really wet spring. Just go with the flow. When you understand that it might be another few weeks before you can move in, understand that you want this home to be perfect. Allow your builder the time to do it. Because if you push to get in there and they don't have a chance to do a thorough job when they're trimming out the house, or you don't have a chance to do a full punch list walk and then give the builder at least a week to make all the corrections, you're really hurting yourself in the long run because you're moving into a house that's not complete and you won't be as happy as if you just kind of relax a little bit and let the timing play out.
And if you put that pressure on yourself, you're going to make decisions that maybe you're not going to be happy with in the long run too, because like we said, a lot of it comes down to client decisions sometimes, like whether or not they get back to the architect on the drawing, whether or not they're getting back to our designers on the selections and things like that. So you don't want to put undue pressure on yourself to make a decision too.
2 words that I tell my clients I never want to hear from them. I wish.
Yes.
I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. I wish this. Take your time. I know everybody gets excited. I know it's one of the biggest things you'll be doing your entire life, besides getting married maybe. But seriously, take your time and really think things through because you never do want to have to use those 2 words to anybody, whether it's your builder, your architect, your spouse, or whomever. Never use those 2 words, I wish.
In hindsight is another one, right?
Same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Mine was a lot more simple.
Yes. So designing and building a custom home should feel empowering, not overwhelming. And this season, we're going to give you the tools to start the process with more clarity and control, starting with these lists, right? And today we started with those first steps, defining your goals and building your timeline. And now we have a few do's and don'ts.
We do. How about if I give them the do's and you give them the don'ts, or would you rather reverse that?
Good cop, bad cop.
Okay, I'll be
Yes.
the good cop.
Okay.
So get clear on your why, lifestyle, priorities, so you don't jump into land or design decisions without really knowing what success looks like for you.
Don't forget to skip aligning with your family or your partner. This can lead to a rocky build later on.
I see what you did there. Yeah, the rocky build. Okay, also, here we go. Do start planning early. As we talked about, at least 6 to 12 months before you break ground. and ignore some of the overly optimistic timelines that you see online. They really don't account for some of the inevitable surprises that are inherent in custom building.
And do not rush into design or construction without anticipating some challenge coming up along the way. This is the first and only time this home is being built. And just like with anything you do for the first time, there's going to be a surprise along the way.
Yes, there will be. We've warned everybody. All right, fun episode. I think that we're off to a good start for season 8. In our next episode, what are we going to be talking about?
We're going to be talking about what I think most people would say is the hardest and most stressful part of the process, which is finding land.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Yes.
That can be, because especially in some parts of the country, land is scarce, right?
It is. And, looks can be deceiving.
Yeah.
As well. So
that'll be fun, because I know how prepared you are. So that means we're going to be talking about, finding what makes a great lot. What about some red flags, and how do you align your goals with that perfect property search?
And we're also going to be bringing in our land guru, if you will.
Oh, you mean Chris is coming back?
Chris is coming back. So
Yay.
He is the person that when we say someone's going to evaluate the land here in the St. Louis market, he is the one evaluating the land. So
we'll also talk about Utah market a little bit and other parts of the country as well. So
did today's episode get you thinking about your dream home? Write it down and bring us your questions. We can address it either directly or in an upcoming episode. So you can email us at podcast@hibbshomes.com or leave us a message at 844-HIBBS20. You can also find our Reddit community on the Art of Custom Building.
It's interesting because we do seriously love answering questions. So I know you put out there ways to communicate with us, and it's not a hollow promise. We really do like communicating with you. So even if you have questions about building, reach out, ask us the questions, drop us a line as far as, what suggested topics do you have? So we're serious when we ask for some feedback, because we love what we do. We love sharing information. Don't care what part of the country you're building in, use us as a resource, right?
And with our more aggressive timeline, I guess, we can answer it a lot more quickly as well.
True. All right, episode number 1, season 8 is in the books. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We appreciate it. We'll be back with episode 2 coming up before long. And until then, take care.
Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes, and please rate and review. The Art of Custom is produced by Hug Monster Sound with original music by Adam Frickfordine. Thanks for listening.